The message appeared on my phone almost like a spark in the quiet of my evening. Simple yet loaded. Meet me upstairs. Don't be late. My heart jumped, an unfamiliar mix of excitement and nervous anticipation tightening my chest. I paused, staring at the screen, rereading the words, trying to decode the tone, the intention behind it. He never asked me to meet him this way, never with such urgency. Normally, our moments were casual, subtle glances and whispered words when no one else was around. This felt different, charged, almost daring. I stood by the stairs, hesitant, my fingers brushing over the railing as I tried to calm my racing thoughts. There was a thrill in the secrecy, the forbidden nature of a private rendezvous. But there was also a whisper of doubt. What if someone knew? What if this was not just about us? I shook my head, trying to silence the nagging voice inside me. Curiosity was stronger than caution, always has been, and I felt it now, tugging me upward, guiding me to him. The climb felt longer than usual. Each step made my anticipation grow, my pulse a steady drum in my ears. I imagined him waiting, the air between us thick with expectation. Shadows stretched along the walls as the dim light of the hallway flickered, playing tricks on my eyes. Every creak of the floor beneath me amplified the tension, making it almost unbearable. I could hear my own breath, shallow and quick, as if it could betray me. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe he wanted to show me something, a surprise, something personal just for us. Maybe it was one of those moments where the world outside disappeared and it was only him and me. The thought made me shiver, the anticipation curling in my stomach, a mixture of nervousness and desire. I adjusted the strap of my bag, fidgeted with my hair, and tried to steady my hands, knowing he would notice the slightest tremor, the subtle hesitation. As I reached the top, I paused, my hand on the door handle. A faint sound, almost imperceptible. A soft shuffle, maybe laughter, or just the echo of my imagination, made me freeze. My chest tightened and a thrill of unease ran through me. This was not a routine encounter. There was something more waiting, something unknown, something that made my curiosity claw at me relentlessly. I could almost sense the energy behind the closed door, the quiet expectation, the tension that wasn't mine alone. I took a deep breath, willing myself to stay composed, letting the anticipation build rather than release it too soon. The thrill of secrecy, of stepping into a moment meant only for him, was intoxicating. My fingers brushed the handle again, slower this time, savoring the hesitation, the suspense, the dangerous allure of what could be waiting inside. This was no ordinary meeting. The moment teetered on the edge of something I couldn't yet define, something thrilling and forbidden. I pushed the door open, my heart in my throat, ready to discover what was hidden just beyond my reach. The moment I stepped inside, my heart skipped, caught between expectation and the sharp sting of uncertainty. I thought it would be just him, our usual clandestine world shrinking into one room, intimate and familiar. But it wasn't empty the way I imagined. There was movement in the shadows, subtle shifts, low murmurs that didn't belong to him alone. I froze, my hand lingering on the edge of the door, senses alert, breath shallow. Then I noticed them. Two more figures waiting, leaning casually, almost too relaxed, as if this was a routine. My stomach dropped. Shock collided with a strange surge of curiosity I couldn't explain. The dim light painted only their outlines, hands and shoulders, nothing more. No faces, but the presence was undeniable, immediate, pressing. The atmosphere thickened. I could feel it settle around me like a heavy curtain. Every step I took echoing against the walls. He stepped forward first, closer, his movement familiar, confident. I almost wanted to reach for him, reassured by his presence, until the others made their subtle gestures. Leaning closer, shifting weight, the low rumble of voices teasing the edges of my awareness. My mind spun. How had this become more than just us? Was this planned? Or was I stumbling into something I was not supposed to see? The questions collided in my head, but before I could think too long, I was already entangled in the charged energy that filled the room, and my pulse thudded as I struggled to process it. I tried to read their intentions, the dynamic between them, the unspoken tension that seemed to hum in the air. The way one moved slightly behind him, fingers brushing against the railing, the other leaning forward, voice low, teasing, almost hypnotic. Everything hinted at play, control, expectation. I couldn't see faces, but I felt their focus, the way it drew me in without words. A small laugh, almost a whisper, escaped from somewhere in the darkness. It made my heart race in a way that surprised me. Shock and curiosity entwined so tightly, I could barely separate them. I realized I was standing on the edge of a moment far beyond what I had imagined, caught between fear, excitement, and an irresistible pull toward the unknown. Every instinct screamed caution. Every part of me throbbed with desire. I took a hesitant step forward, and the space seemed to shift with me. Shadows danced, the figures adjusted. The low hum of murmured words surrounding me like a tide I could not resist. I could feel his gaze on me, the familiar warmth and dominance, guiding me, reassuring me, while the other presences added a tension that made every nerve alive, every breath shallow, every thought consumed by the question of what would come next. I realized in that instant that this was no ordinary encounter. It was something more dangerous, more thrilling, more forbidden. My mind raced with disbelief, with the intoxicating pull of curiosity, and a part of me, the part that had always craved adventure, wanted to step further into the unknown. I was trapped between instinct and desire, fear and fascination, and yet, despite everything, I moved forward, drawn by the energy in the room, unable to turn back. The tension in the room pressed against me like a tangible force, every movement amplified, every shadow charged with possibility. I could feel their presence circling, subtle shifts that brushed against my awareness. My mind raced, trying to reconcile what I had expected with what I had walked into. Curiosity had brought me here, but now something deeper, something darker was taking hold. I couldn't deny the pull. The way my body responded before my mind could catch up, that I hesitated, my hands brushing against the railing, my fingers trembling. He moved closer, and the familiar energy between us wrapped around me, grounding me, whispering familiarity in the midst of chaos. Yet the other two were there, leaning, shifting, small gestures that made the air heavy and my heart pound with a mix of fear and anticipation. I caught glimpses of their movements out of the corner of my eye. A hand adjusting, a shadow sliding closer, a low hum that vibrated in my chest. Every small detail drew me further in, and I felt a shiver travel through me. Equal parts thrill and apprehension, and my thoughts tumbled over themselves. This was beyond anything I had imagined. The moral lines I had drawn blurred with every heartbeat, every subtle interaction. I wanted to retreat, to run, yet my curiosity held me rooted, craving to see what would unfold. My hands flexed at my sides, gripping, releasing, responding to the rhythm of the tension. I could hear soft murmurs, the shuffle of feet, the almost imperceptible laughter that threaded between them. It made my pulse surge, made me aware of every breath, every inch of space around me. He reached out, a familiar touch that sent a spark through me, and I realized how much I had missed the closeness, the thrill of his attention. The others added a new layer, subtle pressures that tested my restraint, drew me closer, teased me in ways words could not. I felt my resolve weaken, melting into the charged atmosphere. I leaned slightly forward, drawn into the current swirling around me, my senses acute, every nerve alert, every muscle tense with anticipation. There was a rhythm to it, an unspoken dance I didn't fully understand but could not resist. Shadows shifted with intent, hands brushed, voices whispered, all creating a symphony of temptation I had no choice but to follow. My breath quickened, heart hammering as the unknown became something I wanted, the fear transforming into exhilaration. I could feel the heat of the moment, the magnetic pull of desire, the intoxicating thrill of stepping past the boundary I had once sworn to respect. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I gave in. Not all at once, but in stages, a subtle leaning, a hesitant step closer, responding to the energy in the room, surrendering to it without fully acknowledging it aloud. I realized the full weight of what had happened, how far I had allowed myself to be drawn in. Yet there was no regret in that surrender, only the dizzying, dangerous thrill of being completely consumed by the moment. A mixture of curiosity, desire, and forbidden excitement that left me trembling, alert, alive in a way I had never experienced before. The encounter ended almost as suddenly as it had begun, leaving a quiet that felt heavier than any noise. I stood there for a moment, trying to catch my breath, feeling the lingering electricity in the air, the shadows of movement that had once surrounded me now retreating into stillness. My heart continued to pound and my mind replayed every subtle gesture, every whispered word, every brush of presence. The adrenaline slowly ebbed, replaced by a dizzying mix of satisfaction, guilt, and disbelief. I traced my fingers along the railing, feeling the warmth of the room as if it had absorbed the tension, carrying it even after they were gone. The memory of him, the familiarity, the dominance, the teasing energy, remained vivid, interlaced with the unknown, with the two others whose presence had shifted the dynamic in ways I could not articulate. It was as though a door had opened, revealing a side of myself I had never confronted, a side that craved risk, desire, and the thrill of the forbidden. Shadows lingered in my vision, subtle reminders of the moments I had shared, moments that had felt electric, overwhelming, and yet intimate. I struggled to reconcile the exhilaration with the moral weight pressing on my conscience. Each step I took away from the room felt tentative, hesitant, as though I were leaving behind not just a space, but a part of myself caught between curiosity and consequence. The excitement had been intoxicating, but now it lingered as a delicate tension, teasing the edges of my thoughts. Impossible to ignore that I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a nearby window, distorted by the dim light. The person staring back at me was the same, yet subtly altered, more aware of the complexity of desire, the depth of temptation, the magnetic pull of forbidden energy. My mind replayed the choices I had made, questioning, analyzing, and yet unable to regret. There was a thrill in knowing I had surrendered, even briefly, to something I had never allowed myself to fully experience. The memory of hands, voices, movements, all faceless yet deeply imprinted, echoed in the quiet room that I sank onto the edge of a bed, my hands resting on my knees, letting the quiet wash over me. The room had returned to its ordinary state, but I could still feel the residue of the encounter clinging to me, a mix of warmth, guilt, and an undeniable hunger for more. The thought of him, the other presences, the danger, and the thrill intertwined, leaving me restless, contemplative, and strangely empowered. I realized that some moments do not end when the physical presence fades. They linger in thought, in memory, in the quiet thrill of secrecy, shaping the way we see ourselves and the choices we make. The energy of the night, the tension, and the surrender were mine now, imprinted and unforgettable. A secret I would carry, a story without faces, yet etched vividly in every nerve and every memory. I rose slowly, my hand brushing the railing one last time, heart still racing, knowing that the experience had changed me, and that its shadow would follow me long after the door had closed behind me.